What is your story? What is your story? Now imagine someone stops you and asks you, who are you? Now that person is trying to know your story. Where did you come from? That person is trying to know your story. Now we all take journeys. We all have stories. And even more, we are told so many stories about who we are, about what we should believe, about what life is all about where we came from, about how we should conduct ourselves, about our origins. We are told so many stories. Now the religion tells us a story. The philosophy, it tells us a story. The science tells us a story. And even today, every entity is telling us a story. The news corporation is telling us a story. And the political class are telling us stories. Stories everywhere. The question is, which story should we believe in? And which story should we take as the true story to live by? Because whatever story you believe in is that story you're going to build your life upon. And that is the story that will shape how you conduct yourself and relate to the world. So, let's do this. Hi, salam alaikum. I want to welcome you back to Human Bound Podcast. My name is Ali Hamban and I am your host. Thank you very much for stopping by. I truly appreciate the time you give me on this podcast. It keeps me inspired. It gets me going. It supports me to do this thing that I love to do. I truly appreciate it. Thank you very much. Now, if this is your first time showing up on this podcast, here is what you should know. What I do on this podcast every week is to pose a question. Now, this question, I don't give clear-cut answers to them. I take a journey of exploration. I try to explore these questions because I believe life is more exciting when there is something to search for. So that element of searching, of seeking, of trying to find is that which makes life more interesting. It keeps us alive. It makes life quite adventurous. Imagine when we feel like we have arrived and we know everything and there is nothing else to do. How would life be like? I believe it would be still. Life would be pale. There would be no joy in it. There would not be any excitement to it. So I believe it is all in that element of searching and seeking. And that is exactly what I try to do on this podcast. I ask questions and I try to explore them. So I take a journey. And only God knows where that would lead me. I really enjoy it. And I hope you would enjoy this train of thought as well. So, in this episode, here is the question I want to explore. Here it is. Now, back in the day, as children, we used to go to school. And at the end of the school hours, here is what our teachers used to do. They gave us homeworks. Go home and do this work. Now, one of the homeworks they gave us was to write about yourself. Myself. Go home and write myself. As kids, we would go home with that page and we would think hard and deep. Who am I? Because the teacher is trying to find out my story. But as children, we didn't have so many stories. At least we can't narrate the stories. We can't express ourselves deep enough. So sometimes we would have to seek the help of our parents, our brothers, our siblings, or someone older than us to tell us who we are and what we should write down for the teacher as our story, myself. Now what happened was, we would first, and it always begins with my name. I am my name. I come from this home. My dad's name is this. My mom's name is this. I have this number of brothers. I love this food and it is my favorite dish. This is the name of my friend, or this is even the name of my pet. This is the name of my school and this is the name of my favorite teacher. I love to play this game and I love to do this as entertainment and this is what I do at pleasure and then that's it. Sometimes it's even half a page and we are done writing about ourselves. Of course, as little children, we haven't done much in life to have so many stories, but that is going to keep prolonging itself. Now, from half a page, fast forward, you finished school, sometimes you have even taken an apprenticeship, You have experience at a job or two, and you have done so much in life. And now you are getting into the corporate world. You are looking for a job. Now, what is the requirement? Write down a CV and present it to the recruiting agent. What are you going to do then? Write down a CV. And the CV is just some sort of a story about yourself, about your journey so far. It's just like myself that you used to write as a kid, but then now there is more things that has added up to what you did, so that you just don't tell him about your name and the name of your mother and father and your friend. He's not interested in that. That is not the version of story your recruiters are looking for. They want you to tell them about your professional journey, your journey so far. Who are you? Now, your name, your school, where it started, where it ended, the first job you did, your experience, your leadership qualities, your extracurriculum qualities, and all of that. And you present it in the most presentable way so that your recruiter would say, wow, this guy has got some really, really powerful story, because he is interested in a story that would convince him that you are capable to work at the place or the position you are applying for. But now, it's not a half pager. You will try as best as you can to make it a page or maybe 2 pages, because from the kid, now you have done so much in your story. There is more that has added up to your story. The point is, we always tell stories. Anytime we move out, we tell a story. Anytime we open our mouths, we tell a story. Even anytime we wear a cloth, we tell a story. Because these clothes and dresses that we actually do, it communicates something. It tells us a story. I don't know if you notice, but everything you wear sometimes even dictate how you walk. Now, these designers, they ain't fool. They know what they are doing. When they design a shirt or when they design a footwear or anything, sometimes they design it to even control how you walk. I walked into a shoe company or shop or a store. I was going to purchase like a footwear. And I thought, oh, come on, just give me something. Let me just wear. I just want to wear something to like a trainer or something. I just want to work out with it. But then, no. This sales lady, she knew what it's all about. And she came down, what sort of footwear are you looking for? Are you looking for a comfortable? Are you looking for a spring one? Or are you looking for something that cushions your leg? And then she begins to tell me a lot about these things that I don't even know about. And she revealed that there are certain footwears that when you wear, they were designed to make you walk in a certain way. And then I was like, wow. And then I thought about it and I said, this is actually true. Not even footwear, even the shirts we wear. Some of them are designed to affect the way we think when we carry ourselves about in walking. Some of them kind of elevate our mindset about ourselves, make us feel good about ourselves because we are wearing this high standard kind of clothes. And it affects our mind and how we think people are looking at us. So we carry ourselves about with high shoulders, and then we carry ourselves about highly because we think we are wearing something very, very prestigious. And sometimes it's not about the price and the prestige. Sometimes it's a cloth that is religiously related. It's like a cloth that is perceived to be holy. So a Muslim lady would wear like a long dress. She thinks that is quite morally, she thinks it's a moral thing to wear. And then she walks immediately. She walks like someone that is holy. Even if she is not, but she wears that, it kind of influences the way she walks. Well, that is just a bit of a tangent. But what I'm saying is the moment we step out, we tell a story. Now, sometimes it's not us telling a story, isn't it? Sometimes it is people telling us a story. Now, I'm going to read something to you, and I just want you to listen to it. Let's go. Imagine yourself brought up from childhood to believe that you were appointed by God to be the ruler of a mighty nation, and that the inherent virtue of your blood raised you far above ordinary mortals. Imagine succeeding in the 20s to the garnered prizes, in provinces, in power, and in pride. The Bismarck's 3 successive victorious wars. Imagine feeling the magnificent German race bounding beneath you in ever-swelling numbers, strength, wealth, and ambition. And imagine on every side the thunderous tribute of crowd loyalty and the skilled, unceasing flattery of courtierly adulation. You are, they say, the all-highest. You are the supreme warlord, who, when the next war comes, will lead to battle all the German tribes, and at the head of the strongest, finest army in the world will renew on a still greater scale the material triumphs of 1866 and 1870. It is for you to choose the Chancellor and Minister of State. It is for you to choose the chiefs of the army and navy. There is no office great or small throughout the empire from which you cannot dismiss the occupant. Each word you utter is received by all present with rapture or at least respect. You have but to form a desire and it is granted. Limitless wealth and splendor attend your every step. 60 palaces and castles await their owner. Hundreds of glittering uniforms fill your wardrobes should you weary of the grosser forms of flattery. Statesmen, generals, admirals, judges, divines, philosophers, scientists, and financiers stand eager to impart their treasured knowledge and to receive with profound gratification your remark upon their various fears which may occur to you. Intimate friends are at hand to report day by day how deeply impressed this or that great expert was with your marvelous grasp of his project. The general staff seemed awed by your comprehension of the higher strategy. The diplomats are wonderstruck by your manly candor or patient restraint, as the case may be. The artists gather in dutiful admiration before the allegorical picture you have painted. Foreign nations vie with your own subject in their welcome, and all sides salute the world's most glorious prince. And this goes on day after day and year after year for 30 years. Are you quite sure, gentle reader, to revive an old-fashioned form, you would have withstood the treatment? Are you quite sure you would have remained a humble-minded man with no exaggerated idea of your own importance, with no undue reliance upon your own opinion, practicing the virtue of humility and striving always for peace? Now, this is quite captivating. This was from a book written by the wartime Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Winston Churchill. It is on the William, the ex-Kaiser of Germany. When you have this childhood and you are told a story about yourself that makes you feel big, don't you think that story affects you? I believe the stories we hear, the stories people tell us about us, has this great effect on how we take ourselves and how we carry ourselves about in the world. It is so powerful. Now, we have so many different entities that sought to tell us the stories about ourselves, about our origin, where we came from, and where we are going. Now, for the science, it's simple. They seek to tell the biological story. They seek to tell the physical story. Nothing spiritual about it. There is nothing hidden. There is nothing unseen that cannot be quantified or measured by any technology. It has to be seen, it has to be touched. So the science tells us a story of the physical world. They tell us the story of how things transform or develops from one state to the other. That is the interest of science. It cannot tell you anything beyond what can be tested, touched, and felt, and examined. But the religion, they tell us a story beyond what the science is telling us. Now, the religion, it tells us a story of an unseen world. It tells us a story of a world that cannot be measured by human intellect. So you would have to you would have to rely on a belief before you can comprehend the story that the religion presents you with. So that the story of a religion is not one that can be tested in the same way that the story of science can be tested. That is why always there is this conflict because once the science is always telling the story of the physical world, the religion tells the story of an unseen world. And then the science think the religion is wrong in that because there is nothing like that. But then the religion says, no, we have seen beyond this. And we can measure it in human behavior, we can measure it in human activities, and we can measure it in some kind of a mystical happenings in life. And that is how we know there is something that is more to life than just what we can see, because something will transcend what we see. Now, these are all stories, and when you go into the religion, even that is divided. The Muslim religion tells a story. The Christian world tells a story. The Jewish world tells a story, and so does Hindu, and so does any belief in this world. It tells a story. Now, here's the question. These stories, what do they seek to make us believe? Because don't forget, any story that you choose to believe would have to shape your life in one way or the other. Because those stories, they are in essence trying to tell you like this is who you are. And these stories have the power to enable you to do one thing or the other. That is how powerful stories are. Now, depending on which religion you relate to, or which religion you take, or which faith you are affiliated to, your belief is shaped by that, and by extension, your behavior is shaped by what you believe. And it all goes down to what story you choose to believe in. Because all these entities, they tell us a certain story. Ultimately, these are trying to answer the big question, the question of existence. Where are you coming from? Where are you going? Who are you? And all of that. Now, it is important that you have a story you believe in. If it works for you and it empowers you and it makes you do good in life, bingo, you have a good story to go by. But here is the thing. There are good stories and there are bad stories. You know it when you are told a bad story about yourself as an individual. Now, I want to take, for instance, we have different groups of people in the world, different races. Perhaps the background where you are coming from, your culture, okay, your community, your position. You may choose to tell yourselves a certain kind of stories that keeps you in a very bad state. Now, for example, you live in a community that you are repeatedly told a story that seeks to say that being wealthy is evil. I don't know. Some people tell you this story, and we have been told this story for a very long time, that money is evil. Money is the root of all evil. If you seek for money, you are looking to become an evil man. Now, we have been told this story, and we have been told to hate people who have money, because the story is always like that. The moment you have money, you become evil. Now, that is how you know that is a bad story. Why? Because we now know that money in itself is not evil, and it doesn't make people evil. Now we know that money only exposes the evil in human being, so that we can now confidently say that those people who tell us that money is evil and is the root of all evil, then we can now say, no. What does that seek to do? If people tell you this is evil, in essence what they are trying to tell you is, do not go for that. And these are the kind of stories that kind of let people be complacent and keep people poor and keep people lazy and skeptical in going out to search for what God might give them in terms of blessing. Because, you see, the stories that we tell ourselves could limit us, or it could even cripple us, or even destroy us. It might even keep us at a lower level of the community. It might even keep us at the lowest and the most disrespectful level in the hierarchy of the whole world. It all depends on the kind of stories that we tell ourselves. If we tell a bad story, then we tend to believe in the bad things, in the wrong things, and then we live in a very wrong way. One other story that we tell ourselves is that people are evil and people would not help you to achieve anything in life. Now, this is a new thing that is coming up, and people are saying this story. People are telling this story. What does that story seek to tell you? The story simply seeks to inform you that the only way you can succeed in life is to be alone, is to live alone, is to be lonely. Okay? Because when you mingle with people, you tend to always have this problem. Because people tend to always disappoint you. People would always cheat you. People would always turn their backs on you. So what you do is to just isolate yourself. Imprison yourself in your own isolation so you don't live with people. Now, this is a story that many people tell today. And we tell it in so many ways. We tell it on the social media, and then we even make music about them. Now, that's very beautiful, isn't it? We tell the story of isolation in a most colorful way. We tell story of loneliness in a very melodious ways. We sing about it, and people just get this belief because they have been told this story that the only way to live is to isolate yourself from people because people are the trouble. I don't know if you noticed this, but this is a story that we have been told over and over again. Again, what other stories do you get in your community? What are the stories that we are being told? Now, take it to the next level, right? What stories do they tell you? Like as Africans, Ghanaians, all right, they tell us a story. And that is not one story that makes us take ourselves with pride and respect ourselves. In fact, some of the stories they tell us about ourselves are stories that seek to make us disrespect our own culture, disrespect our own background, disrespect our own people, because this is the story that they present to us. It is a story that tells us Africans and Ghanaians that we are simply not good enough. Yes, it is a story that tells us that we can't contribute anything, that we are nobodies, that we can only function in a servitude way. This is the story that we have been repeatedly told, and that oppresses the mind of anyone who has this belief about himself. Now, let me just give you a classic example, something that is very close, right? If you have a dad and your father, no doubt, was a failure, and your grandfather is a failure, he has done nothing in life, he failed, and then you grew, now all you know is the story of your father. At least you have seen how your father sank, how your father didn't do well in life. And then you were told the story of your grandfather. But then that is when the story ends. You don't know what happened to your forefathers. Now you are not told the story of how great your ancestry is. The heydays before the tragedy befalls, you were not told how beautiful, how great, how proud you are as people. Now, all these stories are lost. And then someone has chosen to tell you the recent story that doesn't make you feel good about yourself. Now, what that does to your mind is to make you feel shameful about yourself, about your past. It's to make you believe that after all, you are a nobody. You are from a family that is a nobody family, and you begin to feel ashamed about yourself and about your background. Now, that is not surprising because our communities back in Africa, back in Ghana, in Zongo, many people now, today, feel ashamed to even say this is where I come from, because they don't attach any sort of pride and respect to their background. Because of the stories they have been told about their backgrounds and the stories that kind of shape what they believe about their backgrounds. And now they are agents fighting their own backgrounds because they don't know that. They have been told a version of a story. And they have come to believe that, and we all have come to believe that. And I believe if we can hold ourselves to a certain level of pride and respect and to have any confidence in life, we really need to fight off these stories that people told us, because they have been an assault on our minds by way of the stories that we have been told about ourselves. About ourselves. Now, Zongo, I tried to read about Zongo on the internet. There was a book. I have this friend. He is called Abubakar Siddiq. I believe he's no more in Ghana. Long ago, he gave me a book written by a white lady. And she wrote this magnificent book about Zongo people. And I was looking to find a book well written about the people of Zongo. And I could hardly find any. It's that difficult to find. And then we leave the rest of our stories to be told by people who don't necessarily know what it means to be us. Now, what do you expect when people tell your story? And you are there to tell the story, but you are not telling it. And someone would tell a story. Now, here is the interesting thing about a story, right? Every storyteller has an angle. Every storyteller has an angle and sometimes an agenda. You would be lucky to find someone telling you your story in a very objective way without any bias. But if you are not lucky to read a book about you by someone who hates you, then you really know someone doesn't want people to respect you. Then you're looking for someone who is going all his way to make you believe that you are a nobody. That's a very dangerous man. But then, what are the stories that we ourselves have chosen to believe about ourselves? As a community, we tell our stories every day. Now, even when you are in the community and you try to create an impression or to tell your story in a different narrative, now your own people will fight you, because this is the stories that they have been told for a very long time, and now it has become a belief. And you who has gone out to search and look deeper, and now you are trying to reframe the story, to tell your people that no, what they have told us about ourselves is not right, it's wrong. Why don't we start to think about ourselves in this way? Perhaps we have been done great wrong. Now, your people would fight you. If you are lucky, you would be with your life. If you're not, they're going to kill you. Because now the stories they have been told about themselves have become a belief. And that is what they live with. That is how dangerous it is. And that's how powerful a story is. But we have a people, our communities, sometimes we are told a story that keeps us poor. We are told a story that keeps us fighting against each other. And we believe these stories. Any story that keeps you poor, any story that doesn't make you go out there to make any effort in life, any story that doesn't promote love, growth, positivity, and cooperation, friendship, harmony, peace, that is a very bad story. And if you keep sucking these stories, I believe there is a very long way to go. But we owe it to ourselves, a responsibility, to tell a very good story, because I believe you all have a good story to tell. We all have got a very good story to tell as people. And until we try to find out, we would never find out, and we would leave the vacuum wherein people would come and tell us the stories they choose to tell us to keep us fighting so they would benefit from our conflict. But stories are very powerful. Now the question is, what is the story that you choose to believe? What is the story about yourself that you choose to believe? Now, the stories you believe about yourself, are they stories that kind of help you grow? Or they are stories that help you limit yourself? Are they stories that makes you confident? Are they stories that make you proud? The stories you know about yourself, the stories you are told about yourself, the stories you are told about your communities, are they stories that seeks to make you love your community? Or they are stories that makes you hate your community? Now, if you go way back, do you have anywhere in your line of stories where things were really good? And I believe there were really glorious days, but we are not told. So that what we know today are just the few years of our stories, and then we are cut off from the real stories, and now we are agents fighting ourselves. I believe if we keep repeating the bad story, if we keep repeating telling ourselves the bad stories about ourselves and our communities and our people, we will just keep circling back to the same hate, to the same resentment, to the same poverty, to the same lack of growth. We would keep repeating that thing. And that is good, but not good for us. It's good for someone who would exploit that. We tell ourselves stories politically that we would have to hate each other before someone could become a leader. Now, these are stories that limit us. I believe the religion is trying to make human beings boundless. I believe the stories the religion is telling us is not one that is seeking to limit us, because every religion is trying to transcend the physical body. Every religion is seeking to make people extend beyond life so that a person would have a boundless life. That is the story of religion. It seeks to make a person express himself beyond what even the physical world could express. That is the story of religion. The story of culture is one that tells the world that this is who we are and this is how we do things. It is a story that gives identity to a group of people. It is a story of culture. I think the science story is one that seeks to explain how people are in the physical world, how we became about biologically and physically and chemically. I think the story of the philosophy is one that tells what we think about life and how we should conduct ourselves in this life and how we should understand the happenings of life. I think there is always a way that these things could live harmoniously. Well, that's what I think about stories, and I think if we can create a really good stories about ourselves, we can walk with our shoulders high, with our pride, and we can live very confidently and very happily. I believe there is power in the stories we tell ourselves. Why don't we choose a very powerful story to tell ourselves? Well, thank you very much for staying with me, and I should catch you in my next episode. Assalamu alaikum.